The Business, brought to you with the compliments of F&B Business Banking. Now, the UK heard its budget speech yesterday. They're all clumped together. If you have a pension sitting still in the UK, there were some changes announced. This is an important thing for South Africans. In fact, there have been increasing numbers of the estimated 4.7 million British expats taking their pensions out of the UK.
Yeah, there have been, Ian, and we'll be chatting about that just in a minute or two. But two major changes announced to pensions in the UK in the budget yesterday in the UK. George Osborne saying he'll cut the maximum amount that can be saved into a pension from 1.25 million US, 1.25 million pounds to 1 million pounds. And then there's some implications in terms of the taxes as well. But on the line now to chat a little bit more about that and the impact it could have on you if you still have a pension in the UK is Mike Potts, who's Group Sales Director for Carrick Wealth, which of course is a financial services group, and they play very much in this space. Ian, Mike, welcome.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, good morning.
Let's start with a quick overview. I don't want to go too much in depth, but just in terms of pensions and just in terms of this change from 1.25 million pounds to £1 million, etc. What's your take on what happened in the budget speech yesterday?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really. It's very much an election budget. We know that the election's coming up in the UK in May this year, and the Chancellor's got to try and woo certain areas of the population. The key one that he's trying to focus on is the savers. In fact, the front page of the Daily Mail in the UK this morning is "The sun shines on savers," which I thought was quite an interesting front page. So yeah, I mean, what he's done is he's tried to put an awful lot more freedom on pensions, because the over 55s are the people that typically vote in elections. They're the swing voters as well. The UKIP party that's over there is winning quite a lot of ground on the over 55s, and so he came up with this idea to increase the pension freedom and allow people to get access to their pension over the age of 55. On the point specifically where he's reduced the lifetime allowance. Currently, it's 1.25 million pounds. You can contribute to your pension in your lifetime before sort of triggering certain tax events. He's reducing that to £1 million from 2016, 2017. So that'll bring an awful lot more middle earners into that sort of bracket, and it will affect them. So yeah, I mean, particularly in our space, we deal with a lot of pensions that are sort of in that region or over. If people are living in South Africa and their pensions are in that sort of region, it will have a profound effect, because if you wanted to transfer it out of the UK into a number of different schemes that you're allowed to, there's a 25% tax that gets charged on anything that gets transferred over that amount. So if you're currently sitting on a pension of 1.2 million, for instance, now's really a time to look at it, because by the time 2016-17 comes in, you'll be into that tax bracket. So yeah, it's quite a significant change there, particularly for people living in South Africa with British pensions.
Mike, one of the changes that's been looming on the horizon for anyone who is sitting with a pension in the UK is this deadline date that was set. Transfer your pension before the UK pension rules come into effect, and that's due for 1st of April 2015. Now, I was sitting and listening intently to the Chancellor yesterday to see if there was going to be any mention of the specific date that this might kick in. Do you have any clarity on that?
No, he didn't really clarify any of the changes that he's announced that are coming up in April, and there still is quite a bit of confusion on them. We know that prior to the budget, part of the pension freedoms were allowing people to get access to 100% of their defined contribution pension pot, allowing people to transfer from defined benefit pension, which is based on a final salary in a lot of instances, into a defined contribution pension, which is, I suppose, similar to an RA here in South Africa. He didn't really clarify anything on that, and there is still a real big question mark on the practicalities of how that's going to actually work in April. The PensionWise website, which is the British government website, again, it's just it isn't giving an awful lot of detail on there. And the pension companies, and particularly the civil service pension companies that we're speaking to in the UK, they're still keeping to this deadline of saying if you want to transfer your civil service, your national health service scheme, or your army pension scheme, any civil service pension scheme, you have to get all the paperwork to us before the 6th of April. And if you don't, then you're not going to be able to transfer it in the future. So there is still a big question mark over that part of things.
So, Mike, if one was to play it safe then, Astrid's sitting in South Africa. She does have a pension sitting in the UK. She may have worked there as a teacher, in the civil service, as a nurse, police, armed forces, anything like that years ago. It's probably better to play it safe and come to the likes of a Carrick Wealth anyway before the 6th of April in order to get that ball rolling and find out what the options are. Is that the safest thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's getting tight now. I mean, the 6th of April's coming up very, very quickly. And, we've been trying to put the message out in the marketplace ever since the Chancellor announced the changes last year, or the proposed changes, that you need to seek independent financial advice. You need to know how this is going to affect you. And indeed, you look at the surveys in the UK, most of the surveys are saying that around about only a third of the people really understand what these changes mean for them. But it's significant. If you're a police officer, if you're in the armed forces, after April, if you haven't sought financial advice to see what's best option for you, particularly if you're now living outside of the UK, you're going to be stuck with that pension the way it is for the rest of your life.
Okay, Mike, let me jump in there because I don't want to go too far away from the expat thing that you've just mentioned, because it's important. There's a thing called a qualifying recognized overseas pension scheme, or a beautiful acronym called CUROPS, which sounds like something I stubbed my toe on. Just a quick one. Just tell us, where do we put this money? Because a lot of people don't know that this tool is actually available.
Yes, they don't. It's still quite an unknown for a lot of people, and we're trying to drive the message out there in the marketplace. CUROPS was introduced in April 2006, and initially it was put there so that people that were living outside of the UK, when they leave, their pension is frozen in the UK. And frozen doesn't mean it can't grow. Frozen means they can't contribute to it any longer. So there were an awful lot of increasing number of expats around the world who it wasn't necessarily fair to keep their pension in the UK. And so anybody that is now outside of the UK that has a frozen company or private pension, they're entitled to look at the CUROP options. And there's thousands of CUROP options around the globe. It's important to seek financial advice because there's so many different jurisdictions you can put your pension into. There's the Isle of Man, there's Australia, there's New Zealand, there's Gibraltar, there's Malta. And all of these different jurisdictions carry their own nuances and tax laws. And of course, when you're looking at where the best place to put your pension is, particularly for a South African resident, you need to be looking at, has the country I'm moving my pension to got a dual tax agreement with the UK? Has it not? Is it better to not have a dual tax agreement in the UK and have my pension in a jurisdiction that doesn't? So they're the things where it's always important to seek financial advice. And there are CUROPS in South Africa as well. Technically, you could move your pension from the UK into a South African CUROP. Right. It tends not to be as popular an option because then you're converting your pension into rand and you bring it into South Africa, etc., etc.
That just makes me want to cry.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of people want to diversify their portfolio. They love the fact that they, maybe most of their assets are in South Africa and rand-based, but they want to keep a big, good chunk of their pension in sterling, and a CUROPS allows them to do that.
So, I mean, the tax efficiency thing is a big one, really, if you're looking at doing that. That's a very useful tool to know and understand.
Yes, it is. I mean, the tax efficiencies are large. In the UK, the tax rate on income on pensions is anywhere from 0 to 45%. In jurisdictions,
Mike. We're both shaking our head here, just looking at each other. That's a massive amount.
Yeah, it is, and even though the Chancellor has scrapped the 55% death duty charge on pensions, so just to explain that, if you passed away before the Chancellor made these amendments, 55% of your certain types of pensions would go in a death duty to the government. Absolutely crazy. So he removed. It's a death, a death tax. Yeah. Two terrible words put together. Yeah. And so he changed that, but he didn't really change much. What he said was, I'm going to remove that, but I'm going to charge you at I'm going to charge your beneficiaries at your marginal rate of income tax. Well, in most instances, if the 40 pence tax bracket in the UK has just been moved to £43,000 a year. So if you earn more than £43,000 a year, you're in the 40% tax bracket anyway. So it's actually only a 15% saving from where it previously was with the 55% death tax. So with careful planning, you can, by putting your pension into a cure-ops, you can get away from that. And the income tax charges in a jurisdiction like Gibraltar, Gibraltar charges a flat gross fee of 2.5%. So there are significant advantages.
Who knew that such a complicated acronym could actually be quite good news? Let's point people to your website. You're at Carrick, that's CARRICK -wealth, Carrick-wealth.com. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah, that's the website.
Fantastic. Love it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for explaining cure-ops.
Mike Parts, Group Sales Director for Carrick Wealth. We look forward to catching up with you again in the not-too-distant future. Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, guys.